Deep Space Nine is a fan favorite show amongst superfans of the Star Trek universe. It's beloved for its unique cast of characters, its emphasis on family and redemption, and its fearless analysis of the effects of war on all parties involved. It's been decades since the last episode aired, and I am finally ready to go through the series for the very first time. Join me as I share my most and least favorite episodes, character highlights, and honest reactions to this epic show. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Savage Stream, the weekly live stream where we talk all things Star Trek. And today I'm going to be sharing my most and least favorite episodes from season 1 of Deep Space Nine. Now, like I said in that little clip right there, this is my first time watching Deep Space Nine all the way through from start to finish. I missed it in the 90s. I went from TNG straight to Voyager, saw a couple episodes here and there. But this is my first time just fully going through. So I have thoughts. I have a few thoughts. If you have finished Deep Space Nine, please save any spoilers. And if you're not sure if it's a spoiler or not, maybe save the comment in your heart and then make it on a future video when I finish the entire show. But I will say, just for starters, two things. One, hello to everyone who is here live. Hello to everyone watching on the replay. There will be timestamps below so you can skip ahead at any time. And then two, while watching Deep Space Nine, the really fun thing that happened that I was actually surprised by is that it feels like a lot of the TNG nostalgia, even though the tone of this show is nothing like TNG and it's nothing like Voyager. Like, they did a really good job creating kind of a different seasoning or a different flavor for all three of these shows, which I appreciate. So you could watch all three and feel like you're getting something different, but you're also getting Star Trek. So it's been a pleasant surprise to feel like that TNG nostalgia, but for a whole new show. It's almost like finding surprise episodes where you're like, I don't remember seeing this, but it's for like seasons and seasons. So it's super fun. I'm enjoying getting to meet the new characters, seeing how they develop, seeing where they go, seeing the different storylines that are kind of copy pasted from TNG, because as we all know, if you've seen Star Trek for any amount of time, they love to copy and paste a good storyline. But every time they do, in my opinion, it gets better and better and better. Each time they try it again, it just gets better. And because DS9 is in a space station and not a ship that's flying around, there are some unique constraints in how they have to tell their stories, which I find fascinating. So with no further ado, we're going to jump into the first episode that's on my low list. So what I decided to do was I will give you my top 3 episodes, 3 favorite episodes from the season, and then my bottom 3 episodes, my least favorite episodes from the season. And we'll just do that for all 7 seasons. By the way, for anyone who's curious, I'm currently on season 5. Like, I just started season 5 today. So almost there, not quite, but I'm making my way through. So to get started, we're going to start on the low end with my least favorite episodes, and then we're going to end with my most favorite episodes so we can end on a high note. So let's go to the first low episode on the list, and this isn't in any particular order. Season 1, Episode 8, Dax. Jadzia Dax is arrested and accused of orchestrating a political assassination decades ago when the Dax symbiont was inside of Curzon. Throughout the trial, Jadzia makes no attempt to defend herself or provide any help whatsoever to Sisko, who has the entire DS9 crew looking for evidence to exonerate her. Sisko's main defense is that Jadzia can't be held responsible for anything Curzon did. In the end, Odo discovers the truth, and Jadzia is cleared of all charges. Okay, so let's start with the things that I liked about this episode. One thing I love that they did in Deep Space Nine is this introduction of the Trill as a recurring character. Love it. Love it. We did have the Trill introduced in TNG. They look totally different. But that episode, if you remember, that episode was called The Host. This really handsome guy comes aboard. I think he was an ambassador. He comes aboard the ship and falls in love with Beverly, and they have this total crush and this fling, and they're just like so into each other. But something happens to the host, and they have to transplant the symbiote into somebody else. And so they put it into Riker, and now Riker's like flirting with Beverly and all of this. And then that they have to put it into an actual Trill host at some point. And so they take it from Riker and put it into this woman. And Beverly is just like, I cannot keep things straight here. Like, every time I turn around, you're in a new body, and that just does not work for me. You keep jumping around, and this is not going to work. But I will always love you. It was really bittersweet. And so I love that they brought this character back, and then they start to expand on the whole like storyline and background and how are people selected and all of the things. It's fascinating. I love it. I feel like they do the same treatment with the Ferengi in Deep Space Nine, where they give them a whole backstory and, with the Grand Nagus and all the different things that give them so much texture and flavor and dimension. And even though the Ferengi are pretty much still buffoons, they're more well-rounded buffoons, That being said, what I love about this Dax episode is that we get backstory. We learn that Curzon Dax was involved in some kind of shenanigans, and now Jadzia is being held responsible for them. And so Sisko has this whole thing of like, but you can't blame Jadzia for things that Curzon did. And then the person who is prosecuting Jadzia, who is the son of the assassinated political personality, he's like, well, so Trill can just commit the perfect crime anytime they want then, right? Because they could just commit a crime and then hop into another host and be like, oh, that was my past host. That's not me, which is a really interesting idea. And something that Star Trek does, because it's Trek, is it takes these really interesting ideas with a lot of gray zones and then it never clarifies them, right? It's just like, yeah, is she responsible for things that Curzon did? We don't know, but we're just going to write ourselves out of this situation so we don't have to answer that question. And I'm not even going to blame them for that, because whatever way they answered it, people would probably be upset because it's a moral gray zone. That aside, love the idea of that. And the reason why this episode made the bottom of my list is because I just think it's slow and boring and pointless. Like the whole episode, you basically just see Jadzia sitting there stoically saying, I'm not going to defend myself. I don't need anyone's help. I didn't ask for anybody's help. Let them execute me. It's fine. Right. And Sisko's like, why? Tell me, explain, help me understand. I'm trying to save your life. And Jadzia's just like, no one asked you to help me to save my life. And so I guess this is supposed to be some kind of noble mystery, because it turns out that Jadzia's ex-host, Curzon, had an affair with the wife of the assassinated political figure. And the person who was responsible for that guy's death was himself. Like he sold his own self out. He sold out the troops and then they like double crossed him, but he became this huge war hero that ended the war or whatever. So he's this huge figure. And the son has grown up thinking like, we need justice for my dad. But Curzon and wife, whose name I don't remember, were like, we need to honor his memory because his death helped turn things around and saved our people and blah, blah, blah. So we don't want to tarnish his memory. So we're never going to tell the truth. But because of this whole situation, the truth came to light. And so Jadzia was trying to, I guess, respect Curzon's wishes to not defame famous guy. And that's why she wasn't defending herself and was willing to be murdered, I suppose. But then you got to think about it. Like, it wouldn't be enough to kill Jadzia. They would have to kill the symbiote, right? Because the whole argument is that the Trill is responsible for it. Like, the Trill in any host it's in. So actually that Trill would, like, the actual symbiote would have to be destroyed, which is totally against everything that Dax stands for and has fought for and lived her whole life for and all of that. So anyways, I just thought it was boring. I thought it was slow. And at the end it was like, oh, Curzon's a philanderer and doesn't want to. What I thought was going to happen was I thought it was going to be like the wife is the one who did it. The wife sold him out and he's like trying to protect her and doesn't want her to be hurt and doesn't want this guy who's now a grown up to be orphaned. One parent is this hero and the other parent killed the hero. That's what I thought it was going to be. And I was like, oh yeah, I could see like trying to kind of protect her honor and his honor and the kids and the legacy and all that. But like, that wasn't even the answer. So I just was at the end of the episode, I was like, what was the point of that? Just the whole thing was dumb. And then because it turns out that the hero sold himself out, of course, everything that happened in this court hearing is now going to be suppressed because they don't want that kind of negative image of him out there. But I feel like, which, whatever, the heroes, the victors always write history. So whatever. But I'm just like, at this point, he's such a honored figure. Could anything they say or do really tarnish him at this point? Like, he's already saved the day and turned the people around and all the things, ended the war. So finding out that he was the one who did this, would it make any difference? And actually the wife says something like that. She says something to the effect of, no one would even believe this. Even if I said this, no one would believe it. So like I said, just seemed kind of pointless. All around just seemed kind of pointless. Okay, that's episode number 1. And those are my thoughts. I'm going to check the chat and then we'll go to the next episode on the list. Nadia says, don't spend a lot of time on Move Along Home. It's one of the worst Trek episodes ever. : Oh, thank you so much. Welcome to the Great Link. Thank you so much. It's gooey here. Hello to everybody who is live and everybody on the replay. Nadia says, you're going to love the development of the Ferengi as a species and culture, as well as the improvement on special effects. Yeah, the actor who plays, why am I blanking? I'm saying every character's name in my head but the right one. Quark, the actor who plays Quark, who played Quark in TNG, the makeup job is so good. Like, it's so good because, you know, the TVs now are like HD and all that, which they did not have back then. And some of the makeup jobs just don't hold up. Like, if you go back and watch Best of Both Worlds Part 2, when they do the close-up on Captain Picard as Locutus and he turns and you see the little beeping thing, his makeup job does not look as good in HD. It just looks like grayish white face paint with like some little purple lines drawn on. But I remember how good that looked back in the day. Like, the Borg were some of the most stunning designs back in the day, but it just like doesn't hold up to the HD. But Quark looks flawless. Like, I'm like, the eyeshadow, the nail polish, like every little detail, killed it. Did so good. Did such a good job. Ghosts are fine, but Riker is too much. Yeah. I would just give Jadzia Dax 50% of the prison time. I don't think she was going to get prison time. I think they were going to execute her as a traitor for treason or something like that. But Jadzia is the 8th host, so maybe an 1/8 of the prison time. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, it doesn't totally track the whole situation doesn't totally track, but they keep coming back to it, right? They keep coming back to how does the Trill Society work? What is it like when you have a new host? You have to put your old host behind, have a new life, kind of cut ties with the past, make new friends, except for Jadzia is friends with Sisko and was the mentor of Sisko and is now like under his command. So don't cut all the ties. I don't really know. There's some gray areas there. Trek does a lot of the hero myth must be upheld or our society will collapse, which is interesting, but done too much means your society is kind of fragile. Yeah, I agree. And I also agree with the wife that, like, it won't make any difference. People are going to be like, he was a hero. You're lying, Curzon. Who cares what Curzon thinks? He's not even around anymore. Like, just call him a liar, but don't execute him. Thank you so much. PS2 Chipper has gifted 5 memberships to the channel member to be a member for the channel. So you can also put : in the comments if you are a member. And those are first come, first serve. So thank you so much, PS2 Chipper. Jump on that while it's still there. The actor did a Regis and Kelly morning show appearance where he went and he elaborated on the makeup process. Oh, interesting. Oh yeah, do : and then the word : and then another : do it like that. Yeah, the makeup was just it's so good. Like, it's so, the practical effects, chef's kiss. Okay, let's go to the next episode on the list, which again, I'm starting with my 3 lowest in no particular order. And this is the one that Nadia was so excited about. Season 1, Episode 10, Move Along Home. First contact with the Wadi species goes horribly wrong when Quark cheats them, and then they pay him back with a deadly game of their own. The Wadi force Sisko, Kira, Dax, and Bashir into a life-sized game where they have to figure out each puzzle in order to move to the next chap. In the end, Quark makes a major gamble, which results in all of the players being lost. Luckily, the crew was in no real danger because, after all, it was only a game. Yeah, then there's this. This was definitely on the low end. I felt a little conflicted because I felt like they were going for something really fun. Okay, let me start with the positives. For Move Along Home. So I like that they push themselves to do something different. I appreciate that. And we talk about this a lot on the Best of Trek YouTube channel on those Monday live streams. So every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific. We talk a lot about the difference between classic Trek having the 26 episodes and new Trek only having 10 episodes. And the things you can do with those 10 episodes or the things you can't do with those 10 episodes. If you have one wonky episode out of 10, it feels like so much bigger than it needs to be. If you have one musical episode that people don't love, it becomes a really big deal because there's only 10 episodes to choose from. When you have 26, you can kind of play around, you can do all kinds of things. And so I like that they pushed the envelope. I like that they have thought of this really interesting idea of what if the crew is trapped in a board game? We could have all new sets. We'd have the crew doing little puzzles and mysteries. They don't know what's going on. We have Quark as the roguish hero. I like when they put Quark in these situations where he's like being kind of the bad guy self that he normally is, but then he shows he has a heart, which he sort of didn't in this one. but for a second, he was like, oh, wait, this is the crew. I should be careful with how I'm playing. And they were like, double the danger, double the profit. And he was like, woo, roll him, you know? So for a second, he had a little good guy in him. I do like when they bring that out and he has some good guy in him. And I do like that they use it sparingly. Like, he doesn't need to be a hero. He can just be himself. And every once in a while, have a little bit of a heart of gold under there. I like that. So that was a win. I liked the Waddy's simple alien makeup. Like, it was a simple job. Kind of reminds me of Kivas Fajo from The Most Toys, the guy who kidnapped Data and just had like a Sharpie drawn on. It was like a very simple makeup job, but they also look alien. And I like their outfits. I'm here for it. Okay. Now the negatives. What was this? What was this episode? This episode was so dumb. And it's like they're trying to figure out the puzzle, and the puzzle is don't die. You know what I mean? Every shap is like, don't die. I guess not the first one. The first one, or technically the second one, because only children start on the first shap. The second one was to do like a hopscotch game. So that wasn't so bad. But then the next one was like, drink orange juice at this random party or suffocate to death from the poison gas cloud. What kind of game is this? Who is this game fun for? You know what I mean? Like, who? And they're just kind of sliding the pieces on the board in quirks. So you don't even, like, how does Quirk know what the characters are going through? Are the Waddy narrating? Are they saying this character just, you know, passed out and this character just fell off a cliff? It doesn't seem like it. It seems like they just put the characters on the board game and they're just like, whatever they said. Yeah, Alan Moraine. They're just like, Alan Moraine. And they're just like tapping their chopsticks. And then he's like, moving on to the fourth shap. What is going on in this game? This game just does not seem fun. So anyways, Nadia had sent me this email where she was saying this reminds her of the episode Cost of Living in TNG. And that's the episode where Lwaxana takes Alexander to the holodeck and they go to that whimsical fairyland that's full of laughter and mud baths. And it's supposed to be such a charming episode, but it comes across as really weird and super annoying. That is this episode. That is absolutely this episode where you're like, I think they're trying to be whimsical or charming or something, but it's just kind of annoying. Yeah, it's just kind of annoying. But, you know, like I said, kudos to them for trying something different. Appreciate that. Not my favorite episode of the season. That's all I have to say about that episode. I'm going to check the chat and then we'll go to the next episode on the list. My last of my bottom 3 episodes for season 1, which, by the way, season 1's pretty good. Like, I genuinely liked most of the episodes, which is hard to say about season 1 of any show, but I genuinely liked most of the episodes for season 1 of Deep Space Nine. But there were some where I was just like, nah, but a lot of them I was like, this is actually, like, I like this. I actually enjoy this. I think that was a bottle episode. Yeah, it was a bottle episode, sort of. I mean, because they only had like the 2 sets. They had Quark's Bar and then they had the game, which was just a series of hallways in one room that were all like the same hallway in the same room. And I guess the cliffside. But there's good bottle episodes and then there's this one. Went right to the musical, huh? Sure did. I have the musical on the brain right now. Hello to everyone who is joining us. Yeah, it's like a bad D&D quest. I couldn't have said it more perfectly myself. And y'all know I love me some D&D. This is like a bad D&D quest. This is like you're in the caves and you think there's going to be like goblins or something. And they're like, no, you're just in the caves. You're just like walking in the caves. And you're like, okay, let's move on to the next part, you know? Whoever gifted you a membership, that was PS2 Chipper. Super generous, gifted 5 memberships. So if there are any left, be sure to grab them now. Yes, so it only gets better after season 1. I think that is the war cry of anything that gets more than a single season. Like, it should get better after season 1. And I did say this at the very beginning for anyone who missed it. I'm currently at this moment watching DS9 for the very first time all the way through. And I'm currently on season 5. Like, I just started season 5. And yeah, it has gotten better. But I genuinely liked a lot of the episodes in season 1. So I can't even complain. Seeking out new life and new civilizations can sometimes lead to weirdness. 100%. 100%. Wait until season 6 when it's an entire season of this game. It's just Alan Moraine every day. Alan Moraine. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I wish all shows got better after season 1. I'm looking at you, Westworld. That's a good point. That's a good point. But Westworld went on to have like 4 seasons or 5 seasons, didn't it? So there's no accountant sometimes. Who knows why? Okay, let's go to the next episode on the list. This is the last on my list of least favorite episodes from season 1 of Deep Space Nine. Season 1, Episode 17, The Forsaken. Dr. Bashir tries to manage several grumpy Federation ambassadors while Chief O'Brien attempts to disable a rogue computer program. This program is kind of like a puppy, and it just wants attention, and O'Brien is the only person on the station it actually cares about. While this is going on, Lwaxana Troi becomes trapped in a turbolift with Odo during a station-wide systems failure. Odo reluctantly gets vulnerable, and Lwaxana falls helplessly in love with him. So it's another Lwaxana thirst trap episode, which typically are my least favorite in TNG. I mean, aside from the really racist and stupid episodes, like aside from those that are just like universally agreed that they're terrible, I tend to not love the Lwaxana Troi episodes either, just because they're a little one note and it's just her kind of bickering with Deanna and chasing after Riker or Picard or whoever the guy is of the episode. Now, this I think is interesting. So we'll start with the good. I actually like that Lwaxana is in love with Odo of all people. Odo is like, I mean, I want to call him asexual. Like he's not even interested in any kind of sex, but that's not true because he's got a big crush on Kira, which I think is so sweet and really sad, really actually heartbreaking to watch. Some of my favorite episodes is just him being heartbroken over Kira. So he does have some interest in companionship or romantic something, but I love that Lwaxana is so into him, because if you could pick any guy from the station, I would never in a million years pick Odo for Lwaxana, like ever. And because she's so big, she's got so much personality, so much flair, and Odo is the opposite of that. I mean, he is big, like his personality is big, but it's more just like big and grumpy. It's really just one note. It's just big and grumpy. And Lwaxana is like big and bubbly and fun and flirty and all of these things. She's so full of life. And Odo is so stilted and contained. I will say sometimes opposites attract, so it sort of makes sense. And also Lwaxana thinks that she's a thirst trap for every male in a 50-mile radius. So that also tracks that she'd be like, of course he's into me. They're all into me. But she doesn't do that with Odo. You know, with Picard and with Riker and a lot of the guys in TNG, she'll be like, I hear your thoughts, your naughty thoughts or whatever. She doesn't do that to Odo. She doesn't say, I hear your thoughts and, you know, I know what you're thinking of me and all those things at all. She's just like throwing herself at him, just like, oh, you want to go on the turbolift? I want to go on the turbolift. You want to go to the holodeck? I want to go to the holodeck. Like she's just like very, you know, clingy, needy, which is different from how she usually is. She pretends like the guys are chasing her. It makes them feel really uncomfortable while she's chasing them. In this case, she's not pretending anything. She is openly chasing him in all the ways. I mean, she couldn't be more overt if she tried. She's telling him about hooking up with him, like immediately in his office. So these are things that I like. I like that she's drawn to Odo of all people. And I like that Odo is so uncomfortable with being wanted, that he's just like, I don't even know what to do about this. And that Sisko's like, go for it, buddy. You know, just like, I don't know. I love that interplay. I also really love in this episode, the computer program that acts like a puppy. That is a really fun idea. I think there was some probe that came through the wormhole and they scanned it. And by scanning it, they downloaded the program, or maybe they scanned it and then they downloaded the program from the probe to like see where it was from or what was happening with it. And whatever they downloaded happened to be sentient at some level. And it just starts like playing around, you know, and it's just is like having fun. And every time O'Brien tries to leave, it messes something up so that he has to come back. I love this idea of a program that just like is friendly, you know, and likes O'Brien and wants to hang out, especially for someone like O'Brien. That's like a perfect little buddy, little companion to hang out with. And it's kind of a bummer that we never, well, I can't say never because I'm only on season 5. So maybe they bring this puppy program back, but I don't see why they would. It seemed very much contained in the episode, but I wish we would see this program again. Even if we saw this program in Lower Decks, or maybe this program get some kind of physical form with a peanut hamper. You know, maybe it's not into an exocomp, but it shows up in one of those episodes. Now, Lower Decks is already over, so like that's not a thing. But that would be a great place to see this program show up again and have a second life. So that's what else I liked about it. Okay, but why is it on this list of least favorite things? While I like the fact that Lwaxana is going after Odo, the least likely of people, I just don't love a thirst trap episode that focuses on Lwaxana. I feel like it's been done and done and done and done, and I'm over it. However, that being said, now that I'm on season 5 of Deep Space Nine, every time Lwaxana comes back, I like her interactions with Odo because it changes. Every time it changes. It's always like, oh, I'm so in love with you or whatever, but the context keeps changing. And it doesn't just feel like I'm chasing Picard and I'm chasing Picard and I'm chasing Picard. It actually feels pretty different. So can't even complain about that. But that's why it's on this list, is I don't super love the thirst trap Lwaxana situation. And then also the kind of B plot of this story, or maybe the C plot, maybe the B plot's the puppy program, and maybe the C plot is Bashir is babysitting these ambassadors who are all really bratty. And it's just his job to keep them happy and give them a tour of the ship and take them to get something to eat. I don't like them. And you're not supposed to like them, but I don't know. I don't like even watching them on screen. I'm just like, what's their function? They're just kind of walking around. I don't know. Just like, what's their purpose? I think if we were going to do these 3 storylines, and they do intersect because the puppy program shuts down things on the ship because O'Brien's not giving it attention. And then that traps Lwaxana and Odo in the warp, in the turbo lift. And then it traps Bashir and the ambassadors in a really dangerous situation. So they're all connected. But I think I would like the ambassadors to have more of a purpose. Like maybe they're there for some special meeting that's important, or maybe they're just getting in the way of ship's operations that are like, they're actively getting in the way, as opposed to Cisco just being like, take them somewhere else, take them to Quarks, you know? But I just felt like we didn't even need them. Like we didn't even need any of that in the storyline. It could have just been O'Brien and Odo and Lwaxana, same episode. So anyways, that's it for my complaining about the 3 least favorite episodes of season 1. But now I want to get to my 3 favorite episodes of season 1. But before I do that, I'm going to check the chat, and then we're going to go to the next episode on the list. Westworld season 1 was so good. So good. It was so creepy, so good. And then season 2, I was like, no thanks. Because it was just season 1 again. Lwaxana, instant 0 out of 10. Although, one thing I didn't mention, I did like the scene where Lwaxana was really vulnerable with Odo and was just like, no one's ever seen me like this. I do love the times when Lwaxana kind of softens and acts like a regular person. Similar to the Quark with a heart of gold situation. I do like that. And I always love that in TNG also. Like with her and Dr. Timison, like that was the perfect man for her. Just seeing her be selfless and loving and concerned about someone other than herself was so beautiful. So I will give them a point for that. Okay. All kinds of turbo lift awkward in that episode. Yes, and yes. If she was with literally anyone else, it would have been less awkward than Odo. Dr. Bashir has a bigger crush on Kira. Dr. Bashir has a crush on everyone. He's like the more charming, effective version of Lwaxana Troi, at least in season 1. At least in season 1 of Deep Space Nine. Dr. Bashir is into everyone, but he's very charming and intelligent. I mean, he's obnoxious and he's cocky, and so that's kind of a turnoff. But other than that, he has social graces that Odo absolutely does not have, and that Lwaxana probably could have, but she doesn't need it because part of her charm is being big and loud and bubbly. Yeah. Perhaps she is drawn to Odo because she can't read his thoughts. He's not a solid, and therefore his quote unquote brain structure may be too different for her to read. Yep, that's probably it. Probably. And I don't know why they didn't say that. I mean, they didn't need to say all that, but they could have said that, right? Because there are times when I'm trying to think who, like, I think Tuvok has said it before. I feel like maybe Lwaxana or Troi has said it before, where they can't read Ferengi minds, and they'll just be like, oh, we just can't read that species minds. Like, we can't do that. So they could have said that in the episode where Lwaxana is like, ooh, and I can't even read your thoughts, but I can guess what they are, or something like that. But she doesn't say that. She never says that that's part of the attraction, that she can't read his mind. The attraction came from the fact that he stopped the thief who stole her family brooch in Quarks. And she was just like, ooh, what a take charge man. And that's all it took. Sometimes it's love at first sight. That's part of it. Betazoids cannot read Ferengi and their cousin species as well. Oh, yeah. Oh, you know what? No. They did mention it in this episode. They did, because there was the Ferengi cousin species that stole her brooch, and she couldn't sense its thoughts or his thoughts, because Odo had asked her, like, can you sense somebody's guilt in the room? And she was like, no, I can't sense anybody's guilt in the room. And that's when Odo was like, aha, it's so-and-so. You can't read their thoughts. That's how I knew it was that dude. But she didn't mention how she couldn't read Odo's thoughts. Anywho, moving on. Season 5, you just wait. You got so much good stuff to get to. I think I'm not too many episodes into season 5, and I'm already enjoying several episodes, which is a good sign. You ain't lying. Julian wanted to hook up with everybody in season 1. I feel like if Julian would have met Mirror Universe Julian, he would have been like, hey, sup? You know what I mean? Like, he was just like DTF with everyone he saw. I will save the spoiler for next stream. So the next stream is going to be my thoughts on season 2 of Deep Space Nine. So if it's a season 2 spoiler, then that'll be a good spot to go. Not to mention season 6 when we get those platinum episodes. Yeah, I'm definitely not at season 6 yet. Season 1 Bashir is a bit creepy for my taste. He definitely comes on strong. Like, there's the scene, it's literally the first episode, but the scene where he's hitting on Dax, on Jadzia. And I mean, part of me is just like giving him props, because Cisco's there, his boss, Kira's there, who just is not in for this sort of thing. And he's just like, so do you want to go for dinner or coffee or something like that? I was like, okay, like, that's pretty impressive that he had the courage to ask her out in front of other people and just like hold his own. And then he just keeps going, though. He keeps being like, I was dreaming about you last night. Why aren't you, like, just so much stuff. And she's just very clearly like, no, thank you. And he keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. And at one point she does say, like, later on, like seasons later, when they're not a thing, he says something about like, I had a dream about you last night, and it's been a long time since I've had dreams about you, or something like that. And she was just like, that's totally fine. Don't need to know about that. Like, keep your dreams to yourself. We got a good thing going. We can just stay right here in this nice, comfortable friend zone. Okay, in that case, it will be the season 4 stream. Okay, the season 4 stream will be in a hot minute. And Bashir carried a torch for Dax for the longest time, and who could blame him? She's great. And she gives everybody on the ship a chance, except for Bashir, it seems like. Okay, that being said, let's go to the first episode on the list. That's of like one of my favorite episodes of season 1 of Deep Space Nine. Season 1, Episode 7, Q-less. The adventurous archaeologist Vosh shows up on Deep Space Nine with Q following close behind her heels. She teams up with Quark to sell valuable Gamma Quadrant artifacts while the station faces a mysterious, life-threatening energy drain, and someone finally punches Q in the face. So this had to make my favorites list because we get a Where Are They Now for Vosh, which is something I didn't necessarily want. But I was happy to get it, because like the last time we saw her, she was on Cupid and she was getting swept away by Q, who stranded her there and then had Picard like nearly hung to death as Robin Hood. But they escaped. All was well. And then Q was just like, do you want to come with me? I will show you the universe and adventures and blah, blah, blah. The same promise that he had given to Picard many a time. And Picard was like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I like it here. And also, I don't trust you. But Vosh was like, let's go, which I actually was here for in Cupid, because even though I liked the Picard and Vosh dynamic, my co-host for the TNG podcast, Andrea, she said when we reviewed this episode, she was like, I feel like Vosh and Picard are like a summer fling, but you don't see them getting married. Now, we're not talking about the actors who got married in real life, but you don't see them married as characters. You don't see this long-term relationship between Captain Picard and like Tomb Raider Vosh. That's just not a thing. And I was like, that's a good point. Like, they do make a cute summer fling couple. They are not going to make like the strongest marriage of ever or something like that. They're not going to be the kind of couple 20 years from now that you're like, oh, I knew it. You're going to be like, what? Seriously? So I do feel like Vosh and Q are a much better pair. Not that Q was looking to hook up with a human necessarily, or maybe he was. I'm not really sure. It seemed like a platonic thing, but then in this episode, it seemed like maybe it's more. I'm not really sure what's going on between the two of them. But I do feel like just personality-wise, they're a better match because Q is so mischievous, right? He's just always up to some shenanigans. And Vosh, she's also, she's Indiana Jones. She just likes to kind of look at artifacts and do her archaeological digs, but she wants to do them in the most dangerous, crazy ways. So I feel like the two of them would really get along well, traveling through time and space. So in this episode, we find out that it didn't work out super well, which also not surprising. I think the two of them are a little bit too much alike. So basically most of this episode, Q is spending trying to like win Vosh back and come on, let's hang out and whatever. Anyways, the reason why I love this episode is a couple things. One, I love that we get Where Are They Now with Vosh and Q. I kind of love that they're on the outs because it just feels satisfying that they didn't like ride off into the sunset for happy bliss forever, that they both fell out because they're both rascals. 3, I love that Q gets punched in the face because like, it's about time. Somebody should have done this a long time ago. So I love that. 4, I actually like the storyline. Aside from the Vosh, Q, whatever, Vosh brings this artifact on board that she's trying to sell, and she's selling it in Quarks, and she's selling it like on this black market because of course she is. And Quark is like, yes, let's do business. Bring me all your artifacts from the Gamma Quadrant. We can sell them every Friday. And again, like that matches because she's a rascal and Quark's a rascal. That totally makes sense that they would be business partners. But this thing that she sells for like a whole bunch of money turns out to be an egg for some like space alien manta ray. And right as she's trying to sell it, the crew, Cisco et al., discover that this is the source of their power drain. They beam it off into space, and then it like hatches immediately and then flies off through the wormhole or out into space or wherever it's supposed to go. And I just thought that was neat, you know, like they have another space creature that's out there living, and you had, for some reason, their egg in this box. Why did we have that? I don't know. How did it get there? We don't know. But I just love this. And I always love when they do really interesting creatures in Trek. So there was a lot of layers of things to enjoy. And then in the end, it was like, nobody wins. The thing we were bidding on ended up being a life form. So you can't own that anyways. And like, it's off to live its best life out in space. So all around, I feel like this was a fun, lighthearted episode like you expect from Q. You expect it to be kind of like shenanigans and mysterious things happening. But also it had kind of the serious undertones that you expect from Deep Space Nine, right? It's got power drains. And I think the whole space station was being sucked into the wormhole or something because of the power drains. It couldn't keep its location steady in space. And so there was a ticking clock. It had a lot of things. It had like all the things. So it was a really fun episode. And early on in the season, I think it was maybe season, or I don't even remember what episode number I just said it was, but it was pretty early. I feel like it was like 8 or something like that. So had I watched this show in real time, I would have lost my mind at that episode. I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's Vosh. Oh my gosh, it's Q. Oh my gosh, Cisco punched Q. Like there's just so many things to remember from it. It makes it really, really iconic. So those are my thoughts on that episode. I'm super excited to talk about the next episode, which I thought was so good. But before I do that, I'm going to check the chat, and then we'll go on to my second of the top 3 episodes of season 1 of Deep Space Nine. Okay. Episode with Vosh, instant 10 out of 10, which is funny. I think Vosh was only in 3 episodes. She's only in 2 episodes of TNG, right? And then just the 1 episode of DS9, and loved all of them. One of the best episodes of DS9. That's interesting because DS9 has a lot of good episodes. I guess I would ask you, Robert, how many, if it's one of the best, like how big is that best list? Is it like best 10? Is it best 20? You know, is it top 50? Because it is a good episode, but there's a lot of good episodes. I like Vosh. She and Picard had great chemistry on Next Gen. I agree. She was kind of like, enjoy yourself, loosen up. It's Risa. Get into some Jamaharon, you know? She was kind of his like little shoulder devil telling him to like loosen up and have fun. This takes me back. I was lucky enough to be at a con and met quite a few people from Deep Space Nine 4 months before it came out. Cole Meany gave us a hint as to what O'Brien would be up to on the new show. That is super cool. Yes, I agree. That's really cool. That is super cool. And 4 months ahead of the show coming out, I can imagine there's so much excitement and like, what is it going to be? What's going to happen? And then seeing what happened, I have to say O'Brien, especially in season 1, I feel like every other episode was O'Brien or Quark. It was like O'Brien, Quark, other. O'Brien, Quark, other. Like, it's just the two of them back and forth and back and forth. And it felt like they were really doing some serious world building with the Ferengi through Quark. And it felt like I don't know why, but it just felt like O'Brien was the center of attention. Like, so many, even back-to-back episodes, like 3 episodes in a row that are just about O'Brien. But I'm here for it because they're all good. Like, all the O'Brien episodes were legit good. So I couldn't even complain. I couldn't be like, oh, another O'Brien episode. Because at the end, I'd be like, okay. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm glad about that, especially since in TNG, O'Brien didn't really do anything. He just kind of showed up in random places and was just like, hey, guys, what's going on? Oh, yeah, let me transport that. Bing. But there was really nothing for him to do. And O'Brien's character even says it in the show in season 4 when Worf joins, and he's like, back on the Enterprise, I didn't do anything. So I know that they really loved this actor in TNG and just wanted more of him. I think he was first in season 2, but they just wanted more of him. So they just kept finding ways to shoehorn him into random episodes because they really liked him. So I'm glad they found a way to give him a full, well-rounded character. And every time they do more stuff with O'Brien, I'm like, this is so interesting. So I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy with both choices. The choices of building out the Ferengi and making them, they're still buffoons, but making them well-rounded buffoons. And then really giving O'Brien things to do, a person to be. We get so much slice of life stuff with him, which I really love. Okay. Vosh would pair better with Doctor Who than Q. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine Vosh and Doctor Who? Which doctor? Because I think Vosh and Peter Capaldi, which is, I think, the 12th Doctor, would be hilarious. I think it would just be funny. Basically, we would get what we got with the Doctor and Missy, who I'm obsessed with Missy. I love that character. But yeah, Vosh and Doctor Who would be hilarious. I think it would be just as disastrous as Vosh and Q. I will be listening to my phone now. Oh, okay. I have a Japanese sponge cheesecake to get to work on. Okay, enjoy. I like how Q moved on. I do too. I was a little concerned that he was going to start stalking Vosh like all over all of creation. And I'm glad that he didn't. I'm glad he was like, please, come on, Vosh, come on. I swear I've changed. I'll be different. We can go back to having fun. And that when she was just like, no, get out of my hair, he was like, fine, but you'll be back. I like that he moved on. So that way when we see him later in other shows, like when we see him a bunch in Voyager and when we see him in Picard and stuff, he doesn't still have this Vosh baggage. Like he's moved on. He's gotten obsessed with other humans. And I think that's a good thing. Vosh and Picard would have probably worked out better than Crusher and Picard in the long run. Things would have stayed spicy versus the humdrum of the Federation that Picard happened to be really good at. I don't know if I agree. I just don't think Vosh and Picard have any long-term ability to do anything because Picard's not going to leave the Federation. So I guess if they had some kind of long-distance relationship where she just pops onto the ship every couple months and they hook up and then she goes back on an adventure, that could be a thing. But she's never going to be stationary and he's never going to be off gallivanting in caves, even though he says, like, if he was not a captain, that's exactly what he'd be doing, off gallivanting in caves. But because he's a captain, I just don't think he would want a lifestyle that she would want and vice versa. I think Picard and Beverly both want the same kind of lifestyle. I don't know why that didn't work out. So I don't think it's their jobs. I think it's them. I think it's just a them thing that maybe it was too much unrequited love for too many decades. And then it just fizzled out and just was never meant to be. I'm not really sure. I'm surprised that Bashir didn't flirt that much with Vosh. Me too. But I think maybe because they were focusing so much on Q trying to get Vosh and Quark trying to get Vosh, that maybe Bashir trying to get Vosh would be just like one too many. That's my guess. Yeah, he had history. Picard had history with Beverly, but Vosh kept life interesting. I totally agree. I do think Beverly's not going to like spice up Picard's life. I think you're right. They've been friends for 20 years. They know everything there is to know about each other. There's less mystery. I will agree with that. Vosh is out of Julian's league. No shade. They're just very different. You think so? You think this like genius doctor is out of the league of this like Tomb Raider? I don't think she's out of his league. I think they're playing in different sports. That's what I think. I think one's doing baseball, one's doing football. They're just not. But I still think they totally would hook up. Like in this scenario, if she was on the station for long enough, they would totally hook up and go their separate ways and still be friends. That'd be my hypothesis. Sorry, I moved on from Cisco immediately. Didn't play the game like Picard or Janeway. Oh, yes. Yes, you're talking about Q. Yeah, Q, exactly. Cisco did not play games with Q, and Q did not come back. I don't think Janeway played games with Q, but Q kept coming back. So, and I mean, Picard definitely played games with Q, but that was a Q thing. Q was obsessed with Picard first, and Picard just like played along because he had to. Um, yes, that's right. That was really funny, sad. So when Vosh when Vosh shows up on the ship, of course O'Brien recognizes her because that's the captain's ex, right? So he's like, Vosh, and she's like, I'm sorry, do I know you? Because like she remembers random transporter guy. Of course she doesn't know O'Brien. But then O'Brien also recognizes Q, and he's like, Captain, or Cisco's not a captain at the time, but he's like, Commander, that's Q, the Q. And Q's like, aren't you one of the little people? I sort of recognize you. Once again, like Q really remembers random transporter guy. He was pretty fixated on Picard and Riker for a hot second, and Data, his one and only friend. He already has history with Guinan, and he did turn Yar into a popsicle. So, and he turned Beverly into a dog because he thought like she was yapping too much. So I could see him remembering those people and only those people, like literally no one else. He probably has no idea who Geordi is. Maybe Worf, because Worf and Yar were kind of interchangeable, but like, yeah, he would not remember O'Brien either. As we've seen in Picard, that didn't work out. That got Jack, but they didn't stay together. Yeah, and even in the alternate timeline, they didn't stay together. So I don't know why that didn't work out. I feel like it should have. They got Jack, but there was always a kind of hint that they wanted to be together, but hinted they would never work out in the long run. Yeah, so I don't know why. The 10th Doctor and Vosh. I would watch that special. Not gonna lie to you. I would watch that Christmas special. Cole Meany was actually on the very first episode of TNG, but he didn't get a name till later. Oh, there you go. He was on the first episode. He was an Encounter at Farpoint. That's amazing. I only remember him from the second episode, so maybe that's when he gets a name. O'Brien was an Encounter at Farpoint, but he was unnamed in a red shirt in the wrong rank. Interesting. Yes. Vosh and Capaldi's doctor, like any of the doctors would be great, but I think that'd just be hilarious. Picard is already married to Starfleet. Very true. He asked Worf if he ate any good books lately. Oh yeah. Okay, so he would maybe perhaps remember Worf, but not many of the crew of the Enterprise, I think, would Q remember, least of all O'Brien. Okay, so that takes me to the next episode on the list. So now we're in the tops. This is my second favorite episode from season 1 of Deep Space Nine. And like I said, there's no like real order of these. They were just 3 that I was like, oh, there were too many good ones to only pick one. And there were too many I didn't like to only pick one. So that's why I'm doing 3 and 3. So here's the second one on the list.
Season 1, Episode 19, Duet. A mysterious Cardassian ends up on Deep Space Nine with a rare condition that can only mean that he is a war criminal and that he was working at a labor camp during a mining accident that caused some kind of biohazard spill. This man claims to be Amon Maritza, a lowly filing clerk who didn't know about what was really going on in the camp. Investigation uncovers that he's actually Goldar Heel, the head of the labor camp. As Kira and team dig deeper into this mystery, they discover that this man is actually the filing clerk, but he has surgically altered himself to look like Goldar Heel because he feels really guilty for not doing anything to help the victims at that labor camp, and all he wants is for the Bajoran government to punish him for it.
This episode was really good, and I actually so I know before DS9 started, the Kira character was supposed to be Ensign Ro. Like that was the idea, is that this Ro would continue on into the new show. And when she left for the Maquis, there was supposed to be some kind of, I don't know, redemption arc or something. But instead, she didn't want that job. So they found somebody else, and they found Kira, and they created this character of Kira, who is this Bajoran freedom fighter. And now that they are free of the Cardassian, free of their Cardassians, she's kind of helping everything be put back together. She's working with the Federation. She's recovering Deep Space Nine. And now that the wormhole is open, it's going to put Bajor on the map as this place of commerce. And so what I really like about this decision
I mean, it just turned out that way, right? Like they couldn't have Rose, so they have Kira. But what I really love about the decision of how they work with Kira is that they do a ton of backstory about the Bajorans. So again, this is another species that we got a little taste of in TNG. We had a couple episodes with Bajoran in them. We had Ensign Ro, like the episode Ensign Ro. And then we had Lower Decks, where we saw Ensign Sito, and we saw something about the Cardassians there. And then, of course, we get Preemptive Strike, where we have the Maquis, and Journey's End, where we get more Maquis stuff. But I love the backstory of her. And Kira does get pretty one note in season 1, at least, where it's very much going back to Cardassia, you know, or not Cardassia, going back to Bajor, or her conflict between what it's like post-war and pre-war, and figuring out what does that look like and where does she stand. And she no longer has to be a fighter. She doesn't have to be a warrior. Now she's an administrator. What does that look like? How do I run a station, but, you know, put down my weapons? What does that look like? So I love that. And I love all the backstory, and I love getting more detail with her. And the next couple episodes I'll mention are Bajoran stuff. This episode in particular was so interesting to me because of the mystery. I like the mystery unfolding of like, who is this person exactly? What exactly did they do? And this person, Eamon Maritza, who, you know, is pretending to be one person and pretending to be another person, and has all these layers from the very beginning, is extremely hostile towards Kira, which is what we see of the Cardassians in season 1. All the Cardassians are just like, we hate Bajorans. We wish all Bajorans died, blah, blah, blah. They're all one note. They're all the same. Like, you can switch out any of them. Gul Dukat shows up a lot, but honestly, it's like any Cardassian with the exception of Garrick just feels like Gul Dukat again and again and again. They're just like, oh, we hate all Bajorans, blah, blah, blah. They're the same. But this guy is special. He's got like some extra heavy level or layers of just like animosity and just like nastiness oozing from him. And he's saying all these disrespectful things. And Kira was one of the people who helped liberate this camp, I believe. And so she saw what the victims looked like when she helped liberate this mining camp, this labor camp. And so for her, she like, it's like an extra salt on the wound for her to be facing this person who looks like the guy who was in charge of that labor camp, because she saw the effects of all the cruelty and injustice on her people, right? So I love the emotional layers you see in this episode. Like, you see Kira talking to Cisco, and she's just like, you know, her voice is cracking. She's got so much emotion. She's like, you didn't see them and all this stuff. And you feel like, I felt it. I felt like this was real. This is not TV. This is real. This really happened. She really saw these people. She saved them. And then when you go to Golder Heel in the cell, he's just like, I wish I would have done more. You all deserve to die. I mean, he's just like laying it on so thick that you're like, why hasn't anybody shot him yet? Like, he's asking for somebody to shoot him. He's just running off at the mouth, being so evil and hateful and awful. And then as they are uncovering this mystery, and there keeps being like another layer, they get to the point where it's like, wait, you really are Eamon Maritza. You're not Golder Heel. You really were some filing clerk. You really didn't have any power in this labor camp. You really were just like filing papers. And then he breaks down in the scene that I just showed, boohoo crying, where he's like, but I should have done something. I should have done something. And I've lived with guilt for the last however many years since that liberation happened. I think 6 years, 8 years, something like that. But he's like, and he says, because I'm weak and I'm a coward. He actually doesn't say I'm weak and I'm a coward. He says Eamon Maritza was weak. He was a coward. He didn't do anything. And he tried to make it seem like he was a weak coward because he didn't kill more Bajorans like the Cardassians wanted him to. But you could tell what he was really saying is that he was a weak coward because he didn't stand up against all of the atrocities that were happening because he was too afraid. And you see the shift in Kira going from like pure hatred, justified based on everything she's seen and experienced, to kind of confusion, because it's like, why are you trying to look like Golder Heel? Why do you want to look like a war criminal? Why would you have surgically altered your face to look like a war criminal who has escaped persecution? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then you see her go to like this compassion as he just breaks down in tears about how ashamed he is of who he is, of being Cardassian, of being a coward, of being this, of being that. And he just wants to die, but he doesn't just want to die. He wants to be punished. He wants some kind of, I want to say justice, but you can't have justice in a situation like this. Like, nothing you could ever do will undo the harm that was done. So in my mind, you can never have justice. You can't have punishment. You can't have vengeance, but you can't have justice. So he wants more like for his death to matter since his life didn't, something like that. And so you see him breaking down and you see Kira just having this compassion and just being like, there was nothing you could do. You literally couldn't have done anything. You couldn't have stopped anything. No one would have listened to you. And he's just kind of like, but I didn't even try. You know, I deserve punishment. And he starts yelling at like, I have to be punished. I have to be punished. You have to punish me. So he's trying, like the whole reason why he had this freighter take him to Deep Space Nine under all these false pretenses is because he wanted to be captured and he wanted to be turned over to the Bajoran government and he wanted them to execute him, put him on trial and execute him. He wanted to feel fully punished for everything he did/did not do. And in the end, I think Kira was taking him to the government, but like as Eamon Maritza, because the person he was pretending to be had already died. He died like 6 months ago. So like he had a funeral, people were there. So this whole thing of him being Galder Heel, it's like not true. Plus, they also discovered that Galder Heel wasn't even there the day that toxic spill happened. So just everything is like nothing is lining up for him to possibly be this war criminal who deserves the punishment that he's looking for. However, he was there at the camp, so surely someone will punish him for that, you know, like if that's what he's really looking for. But this whole ruse of being Galder Hill just like was not a thing. So as she's like walking him out of the holding cell to, I guess, an airlock or to some ship to go to Bajor and face his punishment, some Bajoran just like knifes him in the back. And you're like, oh my gosh. And Kira's just like over his body and looks up at the attacker and is just like, why did you do that? The episode is like so emotional. Like I legit cried watching this episode. It was just like, oh my gosh, there's so many emotions, which is so impressive to do on like a 45-minute TV show about space aliens, you know? But I've been thinking about that a lot, about that particular ending. And I said earlier about how Star Trek has these moral gray zones, and a lot of times they don't resolve it. They're just like, this is a thing that happened and we move on. You know, I'm thinking of the Tuvix episode in Voyager, where it's like, this is a thing that happened and we move on. You know, in the episode Tuvix, there was a lot more wrestling with the moral implications, but usually there's not. Usually there's like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. End of episode. You know what I mean? And we just don't know. And it's kind of left up to you to think about that. In this case, I was thinking about it and I was like, they couldn't really let him go though. Like they couldn't let him go unpunished, even though he technically was not Galder Heel, because of the atrocities that are attached to him as a person. They couldn't end the show with him just walking off into the sunset and not knowing for sure that he didn't get punished, because then the message would be war criminals get off easy as long as they feel really bad about it, right? And even though we know he wasn't a war criminal, the guy who knifed him didn't know that. So I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, they had to wrap up this storyline in a way where this guy still does get punished. And it couldn't be an accident. It couldn't be like his shuttle exploded. Oh, that sucks. It couldn't be like that. It had to be something that aligned with his desire for the Bajorans to get revenge upon him. And that is what he wanted. He wanted to be more public. He wanted to be a whole trial and execution. He wanted like all the shame and everything heaped on him. But instead, he just got knifed in the back while walking down the promenade. So it wasn't as grand as he just died immediately. So he didn't kind of see it coming or anything, but they did end the story the way he was trying to end the story. So anyways, that's that episode. I really enjoyed all the nuances of it. I thought it was super interesting. And I do like seeing Kira's transformations through everything that she's experiencing. Okay, so I am going to check the chat, and then I'm going to go to the last episode on the list in my list of top favorite episodes from season 1. Okay, and I see we have some new people here. Hello. Just so you know, I am watching Deep Space Nine for the very first time, so please no spoilers. Today's conversation is all about season 1 of Deep Space Nine. Yeah, so Chaotic Truth says every episode of season 1 was bad. See, I disagree. I like a lot of the episodes of season 1, and that's usually not true of season 1 of any show, but I really enjoyed watching it. It felt like I was getting that TNG nostalgia from it. I've watched Duet like 8 times, and I cry like through the whole episode. Yeah, it's super emotional. Like they do a really good job having you feel exactly what they want you to feel, at least in my opinion. That was an episode that packed a real emotional punch. It's my #1 pick for the best episode of season 1. Great script and great work from the cast.
It kind of reminds me of that episode Chain of Command where, Picard's being tortured by Gul Madrid, and Gul Madrid, like the actor who plays Gul Madrid and so does Patrick Stewart, the actor who plays Picard. They do such masterful jobs that you're just like, it feels real. It feels real. Even that you forget that it's TV. You're just like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Like you're really into it because the delivery is so solid. And we usually don't get that level of delivery for shows like this because you don't need to, right? You've got space aliens and battles and lasers and, you don't need to go to that emotional depth. So I appreciate that. I like how this episode gave more context into the atrocities of the occupation. Me too, because they're always like, oh, you guys just did bad things. But when they get specific and they make it real and they put a face on it, it definitely adds more layers to the show and more realism. He was the dude playing a dude, pretending to be the dude being another dude. Perfectly put. Duet was some good character development for Kira, and I really like that episode. All right, AF Kaplan, see you next time. As Austrian, I grew up with former, yeah, I know the word you're trying to say. I don't know if I can say it on YouTube. And their victims. I knew a few Golda Heels, some Kiras, and the one Bajoran and so many Maritzas, full of shame and guilt for doing nothing. Exactly like, first of all, thank you for sharing that. But I felt like this, and of course the parallels are on purpose. Like that's the whole thing with Cardassia and Bajor. Like that's the parallel they want you to draw. And I feel like they did a really good job with this episode. Like I felt the pain. And also it's like, even though these are fake stories, these are real stories. Do you know what I mean? Like these, to your point, these people, and they're just demonstrating that story on screen with aliens, but it's the same story. This episode hits differently for me. Duet is my personal top 3 in all of Trek. Wow. That's impressive because there's like over 800 episodes of Star Trek. So that's unreal. Best bottle episode ever. Yeah, this one definitely is a bottle episode because it's really like, they go to the promenade twice, maybe. Almost the entire thing's in the prison cell. And then there's that one scene in Ops when they're like doing their CSI thing and they're going through the photos and trying to figure out who the people are. But mostly it's just talking in a jail cell. And you would think that'd be extremely boring. Just like a lot of exposition and people talking at each other. But it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like people just talking at each other. It feels like a story that they're telling. And to emote, especially for the guy playing Golda Hill, to be able to emote through like layers of prosthetics is pretty impressive. Yes, The Visitor is very good, but that's not season 1, but that episode's very good. Kira was one of my favorite characters in all of Star Trek. I really like Kira. I really like all of them. I don't think I dislike. Wait, what's Quark's brother's name? He's kind of annoying. But they wrote him to be that way. So, I don't know. Did you know about this episode or any of these episodes going into it? No, I did not know about any of these episodes going into them. No. Nana Visitor gave her so much depth. It was unbelievable to me sometimes how this character evolved. I think the interesting thing with Nana Visitor is that, you were saying about Visitor. Yeah, the thing about Nana Visitor is that I feel like the character of Kira is supposed to be like so like hard and tough, right? Because she's a fighter and a survivor and all of that. But Nana Visitor seems, I don't know, I haven't seen any interviews with the actress, but the way she plays the character, she has this like really soft and sweet side. And I love that. I actually really love this mix of soft and hard that make up her personality. I think it's really beautiful. And I think it's like, what kind of a woman would she have been if she didn't grow up in the occupation? Like, who would she have become? It's like she's this hardened fighter because she had to be to survive. But now she doesn't have to be to survive. Now it's just a habit. And I actually kind of like that. I like that there's these levels to Kira a lot. Duet is the only good episode in season 1. Well, I have a couple other episodes that I like, but I do really like Duet. The scene of Darhill crying that he didn't do anything reminds me of the end of Schindler's List when Liam Neeson just cries over all the folks he didn't save. Yeah. Yep. The worst episode was that dumb game episode. It was trash. Yeah, that was Move Along Home. We already talked about that one today. Because I started with the episodes I liked the least, and now I'm talking about the episodes I liked the most. But yeah, that episode absolutely made my list of my least favorite. Later, Nadia.
They were finding their stride in season 1, lessons learned from TNG season 1. Yeah, TNG season 1 was pretty bad. But by the time they got to DS9, I feel like DS9 season 1 was not as rough as TNG season 1 because they weren't coming off of a 30-year hiatus. You know, like TNG was still going while they were filming DS9. So they used a lot of the same crewmen, not like actors, but I mean like the crewmen who were like doing the cameras and stuff. They used a lot of the same crewmen. So I feel like they had a much less steep learning curve. And I'll say the same thing for Voyager. Like their season 1 was not as rough as season 1 of TNG either, because they had like the benefit of the learning. He needed absolution through execution, and he couldn't handle the pain of it any longer as a bystander. So he became the villain to give everyone the chance at vengeance, including himself. Yeah, I totally agree. To be honest, Kira was a very well developed character. I really like how Kira is not the mouthpiece, but how she's our entry point into Bajoran like history and culture and stuff like that. Same way that Dax is the entry into Trill culture. I like where they go with that. I'm actually not the biggest fan of it. I like Kira's assessment at the beginning. No matter what part you played in the occupation, you're still a part of the problem, which I think was I think that was why he got knifed in the back in the end, was like, no matter what part you played, whether he spoke up or didn't speak up, he still was a part of the atrocity. And so he did not have I feel like they did not want him to go free in the end. Like the writers did not want to leave that message that you were a part of this in any way, this atrocity, but like, as long as you feel really bad, then it's okay. Like, I think they did not want that to be the take home message. And that's why he got knifed in the back. Careful, Charisse. Rom and Nog, spoiler free. They both, they improve. I'll leave it at that. I will say currently, while we're only talking about season 1, I am currently I just started season 5, DS9. So Rom has had a lot of growth, but oh my word. I think he's had the most growth literally in season 4. So seasons 1 through 3 of Rom, hard pass. Yeah. Nog though, obsessed with Nog from the very first time I saw Nog. Love this character. Yes, you get that about Kira because all the people used to talk about is what a boss she is and how she can kick butt, but there's so much more. There's so much more to her, and there's so much more to all the characters. I like the layers that we get to see. How many episodes do you watch a day? That depends on the day. But my goal, today we're doing the best worst of season 1. Next week it'll be the best worst of season 2. And then you can count out by there. So my goal is to be totally done with all the seasons by the time I get to that particular week. We'll see how that works though. Okay, so here's one of my favorite my last favorite episode of season 1, and then I have an honorable mention. And then I'll like throw in a little bit more at the end.
Season 1, Episode 20, In the Hands of the Prophets. Tensions rise when a Bajoran religious leader, Vedic Wynn, opposes Keiko O'Brien's secular curriculum in the station's school. Vedic Wynn discourages all Bajoran families from sending their students to the school until Keiko gets in line with what she wants. Later on, the school is bombed, and during a rally to denounce this violence, Vedic Wynn also plans to have her rival, Vedic Bareil, assassinated. Thankfully, her plans are thwarted at the last second, and all is well.
I really like this episode too. Like I said, this is one of my favorites. Totally different from Duet though. Duet was like a really intense emotional journey. This is like the opposite. This is like Die Hard or something. Like this is just like explosions and intrigue and mystery and, but I really liked it. Okay. One of the things I loved about this episode is I didn't see where they were going. Like I was shocked when the school was bombed. Shocked. Because I did not see it taking that turn. Like I know Vedic Wynn is like, I want people to come back to the old ways and I want the school to be more religious and less secular. Okay, I got that. And then I knew from the beginning that Bajoran woman who's working with Miles was like messing with stuff. Because he kept being like, how was that messed up? We just fixed it. How was that messed? And she kept being like, oh no, I already looked at it. Oh no, I took care of it. So she was acting really suspicious. So I knew something was going on. But then when the school got bombed, I was like, what the heck? Like, who does that? And mind you, I used to be a teacher. So that was like really personally upsetting to me and scary. And then that was enough. Like that alone was enough for me to be like, what the heck is going on? Like that was a really big moment. And then for it to be some kind of like assassination attempt for Vedic Bareil, I was like, what the heck? It was a lot of surprises. I think that's why this episode makes the top of the list. I thought it was really interesting concepts and stuff, but also the way in which the story unraveled was really surprising to me. I didn't see any of it coming. And also, on another note, like Vedic Wynn is just the worst. I love how they wrote this character. I literally despise her, like from the beginning, especially in this episode. And Kira figures it out, and she's like, "It was you. You were behind everything." But then the zealot who was going to carry out the attack, the one who was caught, I forget her name, but whatever that Bajoran lady's name was, of course she didn't say anything. Like she didn't rat out Vedic Wynn because Vedic Wynn was like, "It's what the prophets want. The prophets want you to assassinate Vedic Bareil because Kaiopaka had just gone off to live on some prison planet forevermore. So now they need a new Kai." And Vedic Wynn wants to be Kai, and her only real opponent is Vedic Bareil. But Vedic Bareil spends all of his time in a monastery. So she's like, the only way to get him out of this monastery is to blow up the school. So there's this huge, big, terrible thing. So he feels a need to come to the station to publicly renounce this kind of violence in the station. And that's the only way to like get him out of the protective arms or security or whatever that's going on at the monastery. I feel like, but like she's always at the monastery. So I don't really get the logic of this. But anyways, this is our big plan. Like get him out in the open and then have this zealous person assassinate him. So now that takes out her competition, but also because he'd be standing right next to her when he got phasered, she could be like, "Oh my goodness, oh, I didn't know what I was in harm's way too. I don't know who did that." Right? So she would have it would get rid of her rival, but also increase her points in the poll of like she could have been next or she could have been targeted. And she was already setting herself up as this really what's the word? Like traditional Bajoran person when it comes to the religion. And that was like that was what she was going to stand on. And that's how she's different from all these others and everything. Anyways, freaking love this episode. This episode was so good and such a surprise. And I just feel for poor Keiko. Like she finally found something to do on this ship that she loves and she's good at. And the kids are learning things. And then Vedic Wynn comes along is like stirring up trouble. Not because she really cares. Like as much as she says she follows stuff with the prophets, I just feel like she couldn't care less about the prophets. She just wants power. She just wants everybody to look at her and think she's amazing and like fall at her feet and kiss her little pinky toe. Like that's all she wants. It seems like it doesn't seem like she really cares about Bajor. She really cares about the people. She really cares about their spiritual lives. She cares about the prophets. It seems like she only cares about herself. The worst kind of person to put in charge. So I just really have to give the writers mad props on creating the character of Vedic Wynn because I honestly dislike Wynn way more than I dislike any of the Cardassians. Like Gul Dukat, who's super annoying, I just feel like whatever. You know what I mean? Like every time you see him, you're like, here he goes again. But every time I see Vedic Wynn, I'm just like, what is she up to this time? You know, I give her so much side eye. She's just such a much better developed character, honestly. And this is one episode. We see her again and again, but just in this one episode alone, you get the feeling that she's not all she's cracked up to be, that she's got these hidden layers, that she's sneaky, that she's conniving, that she's power hungry, but pretending to be all spiritual and virtuous. There's a lot of layers to this character. So like mad props to them for creating such a complex character who keeps things interesting. Because every time she shows up on screen, you're just like, what's she up to now? Because whatever it is, it's not going to be what you think it is. Well, it is going to be what you think it is, but it's not going to happen the way you think it's going to happen. You know, she's going to come around from the side. She's going to get you like that raptor that jumps in from the side of the bush. That's Vedic Wynn. So yeah, mad props for that character. I'm at the end of my list and I'm totally going to read all the comments, but I did want to just answer a few more things that people had mentioned last time when I said I was going to do this series about my thoughts going through Deep Space Nine for the very first time. So Vedic Wynn, that character, love how they've written her. So many layers, and I just hate her. I just hate her. And it's really hard too to give that much emotion to these characters that you only see in like an episode here or there. So super impressive. Characters that I love. I'm obsessed with Nog from the very first episode. When you see him running around with that guy with the cool like ridges and they're like doing some kind of criminal activity. I don't know. Every time he just smiles and like does that, he just melts my heart. I freaking love Nog. And like I said, I've just started season 5 and I still love Nog. That's a character I really enjoy. Let's see who else. I love that they turned down Bashir over time. I think Bashir season 1 was kind of annoying. That's probably my biggest takeaway in season 1 is just he's annoying. I was surprised. You guys had asked last week, what are some of the things I was surprised about? I'm surprised about the casual racism on Deep Space Nine. Like every other episode, they just are racially profiling everyone. It's just like, well, they're a Klingon, so of course they're like that. Well, they're Ferengi, of course they're like that. There's the so-and-so, like everybody's like their label and like all the attributes attached to their label because of whatever species they are, and that is all they are and all they will be. There's Klingons on board, you better keep an eye on them because you know how the Klingons are. It's just kind of like, this is so weird. It's just weird. So that was surprising. I was surprised also by the lack of Cisco-centered episodes in season 1 because I'm so used to TNG, which is like Picard. So that's not Deep Space Nine. It's not Cisco. Like he's there, he's in all the episodes, but there are very few episodes that are just centered around him and his story. Like I could probably count them on one hand. And I was really surprised by that because I was expecting it to be more like the Captain's show and not so much of an ensemble or so much of the O'Brien and Quark show, which is what season 1 feels like. O'Brien and Quark with a little bit of Kira mixed in. So I was surprised by that. But again, like not mad. I'm not mad about it. I think I like what they've done with the characters. I like where they're going with the characters. And that's my recap of season 1. Next week, I'll be talking about season 2 and my highs and lows. But before I do that, I want to get to the chat and hear your thoughts. Oh, and I have an honorable mention. I totally forgot. I have one more episode I want to talk about. So I jumped the gun on that because I have one more that I had to give an honorable mention because I really like this episode, but it wasn't one of the top 3. Yes, I love Nog. Long live Nog. Yes, in the hands of the prophets, Trek finally addressed religion and is respectful. As a non-believer, non-spiritual person, I think this is super important. Yeah, I am a more religious I'm not super religious nowadays, but have been super religious in the past. And I do think this episode was done really well because instead of just being like, you believe in religion, you're stupid, which is usually what the shows do, right? Like, if you believe in any religion, you're stupid. Instead of that, it was just like seeing Vedic Wynn using religion to get her way. It was just a power play using the vehicle of religion. And I appreciated that because that's a legitimate thing. That's not judging people who are spiritual. That's just looking at how different ways that people try to get power. And she was trying through religious manipulation, basically. In the Hands of the Prophets is my favorite of season 1. It's unfortunately even more of a moral for today than when it came out. Keiko's best episode ever. For me, it's a top 100 episode of Trek overall, which is saying a lot because Dustin did literally rank every single episode of Star Trek, like all 800 and whatever episodes. So a top 100 is pretty good. Wynn is a great villain, and Louise Fletcher was an amazing actress. Yeah, Wynn is such a good villain. Like, Wynn is so much better than Gul Dukat, like on every level. And I get we need to have Gul Dukat because Cardassians, blah, blah. But I also love the fact that they have a Bajoran bad guy and that the Bajoran bad guy is bad to the Bajorans. You know what I mean? Because of course the Cardassians are bad for the Bajorans because they were the ones who occupied and they were the warmongers and all the things. But to have someone who's inside the system, supposedly trying to restore Bajor to its former glory, but potentially causing more harm than good because all you care about is power. Fascinating. Like, such a good villain. I totally agree. Yes, and Randall, whenever she says my child to Kira, I just want to smack her. I just want to smack Vedic Wynn. Yes, David. Yes. Hey, David. Wynn is one of the most punchable faces in Trek. 1000%. Every time she says my child to Kira, you're just like, and I love, like, in the beginning too, in this episode, in the Hands of the Prophet, Kira was like, who is she talking to? Maybe Cisco or something, but somebody was asking for background on Vedic Wynn, and she was just like, she has a lot of the Bajoran support, including mine. So at the start of this episode, Kira was on Team Wynn. Like, she respected her. She thought she was a great leader. By the end, when she knew it was Wynn who was trying to assassinate Bareil. She couldn't prove it, but she knew it. And then she confronted her, and it's just like, oh, just the look in her face where she was like, I know this was you, and you set this all up. And then Wynn was just like, you better think twice before talking to me disrespectfully, my child. And it's like, oh, what's going to happen with these two? Such a good bad guy. Such a good bad guy. Yeah, Bareil. Wynn continues to grow and get better as the series goes on. I love her.
Wynn's smile makes my skin crawl. I couldn't say it better because she's up to something. She's up to something. By the way, if you're still watching, this is my review of my highs and lows of season 1 of Deep Space Nine. I'm going to do season 2 next week, so be sure to subscribe so that way you'll get the notification for next week's episode. Same time, same place every Wednesday. I like the deleted scene where Keiko crane kicks Wynn from the promenade, 2nd floor, while shouting, "This is Terok Nor. We've never seen sprawled out on the bottom floor like a bad 80s movie editing." That's so funny. Yeah, and so like Keiko, Keiko she's gonna stand her ground, but she's not gonna be aggressive. Kira, on the other hand, there's some moments where I'm like, Kira's gonna smack her. Like Kira's just gonna straight up hit her. And what's she gonna do about it? Like, maybe she needs some bodyguards when she's talking to Kira. This is a perfect comparison. So Ducat is Voldemort and Wynn is Umbridge. This is a perfect comparison because Ducat is just like, yeah, exactly. Because Voldemort, you're just like, yeah, he's evil. Like he's just super evil. And everything he does is bad because he's evil. You know what I mean? But Umbridge, you're like, why are you like that? You're just a hateful person for no reason. You have no excuse. There's no reason for you to be this way. Yeah, that is the perfect parallel. Wynn is not part of the same order, the same denomination as Bareil. Bareil, though, oversees the gardens of the Vedic Assembly, so you see them together early for that reason. Okay, that's fair. The racism on DS9 is on purpose to show how real these characters are, and it gives them a chance to actually grow, unlike TNG, where they don't change much. Yeah, a lot of shows that are episodic, like Monster of the Week shows, can't have their characters grow too much because you want to see the same characters but in different scenarios. So the characters keep growing and changing, then it's not the show that you fell in love with. So that's one challenge that any episodic shows or any book series or whatever kind of have. I'm thinking of Sherlock Holmes, which I adore. You have that challenge with Sherlock Holmes where it's like Sherlock cannot change. He cannot grow. He cannot be a different person because what we love, by we, I mean me and other superfans like me, we love Sherlock being Sherlock. So he has to stay the same person and just the case changes, the environment changes, the people around him change, but he has to be the same person. He can't grow as an individual because it'll change the dynamic of the show. So that is like that's a challenge for any kind of episodic. With Deep Space Nine and with TNG and with Voyager, there is some character growth allowed. Like, there's always space for that, but it's got to be like tempered and measured. And that's why you see a lot of times these characters will like hook up for an episode and then you never see that again, or you never hear about that again because it's not convenient to the plot because they don't want to change it too much. And if there is going to be a character that does end up getting married, it can't be like all the characters. It's got to be one couple that gets to make it all the way to the end of the season and change in that sense. But even then, when you see them as a married couple, they're the same exact people they were before. They're not that different. But yeah, I do think DS9 had more abilities to do different things. They definitely had the ability to do a lot more change with their characters as they saw fit. And it still would make sense in the context of the space station. I love how DS9 really does feel like a Western. There's a sheriff, a deputy, a saloon, a doctor, and the runabouts are their steeds. I never thought about it that way, but you're right. Oh, you're so right, Louise Fletcher. How amazing. I mean, you can see why she was an Academy Award winner. Yeah, her little smile, her smile that's like nice, but also evil. Very well done. She was the epitome of someone using a group of people's faith for her own ambition. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Please come back. You can always be an ensign. That's true. That's true. You could be an ensign forever and never change. You could be an ensign for all 7 seasons for some strange reason, while other people are getting promoted, demoted, and promoted again. Okay, so the last one I want to talk about was my honorable mention, which I almost forgot, and I'm glad I didn't because it won't fit for next week's episode about season 2 favorites. So here we go.
Season 1, Episode 15, Progress. Kira is sent to evacuate a stubborn Bajoran farmer from a moon that's being converted into a power facility. While Kira sympathizes with him, she also has to wrestle with what life looks like on the other side of the occupation. Ultimately, she decides to do what's best for Bajor, and she becomes the exact kind of enforcer that she always despised.
So I really like this episode too, not as much as Duet, In the Hands of the Prophets, and Progress. But I do really like this episode because I feel like this is the one that really shows
Kira on those two sides, right? Where she's used to being that scrappy survivor, but now she's an administrator. Times have changed. Bajor has changed. Her role has changed, and she has to change. And another thing that I really like, this is also surprising, and this is not so much a season one thing as the few seasons I've seen so far, is like every time you turn around, Kira just quits. Or she just like goes on leave and just goes on these adventures. She's just like, whatever, I'm not part of the station anymore. I'm doing this now. And everybody's like, okay. And then when she comes back, Cisco's like, welcome back. Like nothing happened. And I guess it's because she works for Bajor and not for the Federation. So she can just like up and leave whenever, like in this episode where this guy is on this moon and he's like, I don't want to leave. And she's like, okay, I don't want you to leave. Okay, I'm not working at the station anymore. I'm just going to live here now. You know, and you're like, really? You just, so I just feel like whoever her replacement is has a lot of job security because Kira's always off doing something somewhere. But I really enjoyed this episode. Like I enjoyed the last scene. Probably that was the emotional culmination for me of the whole thing, of her like really battling between, do I embrace this personality of being this scrappy fighter, or do I embrace the picture of new Bajor? And the guy who she's protecting is like, I'm not leaving. Like, I am not leaving this moon. If I leave this moon, it'll kill me. I'll die. Like, I can't leave this moon. And she's just like, think about Bajor. Think about what this will do for the people. And he's just like, I don't care about Bajor anymore. Like, I don't want to think about Bajor. I've been thinking about Bajor for my whole life. I've survived all these terrible atrocities. Now I just want to retire on my farm and build my little hut and just sit here and eat yummy food. Leave me alone. And she's like, okay, but we could set all this up on Bajor. Like, we could take the whole hut with us. And he's just like, no, this is where I'm staying. I feel like Kira has to come to this point where she makes a break with the past and embraces the new in this episode. Like, she allows him this indulgence. She allows him to finish his little hut thing. I don't even know what that thing is that he's building. A kiln, maybe? An apiary? I don't know. Whatever the thing is he's building. She helps him finish it, and then she destroys it. Because she's like, your work here is done. It is time to go. It's time to move on. Okay? It's time to embrace the new Bajor. And even though there's I'm seeing a break between her old self-identity and her new self-identity, at the same time, her values have not changed. She has been and always is doing what is best for Bajor. And what is best for Bajor in this episode is getting these people off the moon. That is what's best for the masses. And what was best for Bajor 3 months ago was liberating camps and fighting the Cardassians. She is doing what's best for Bajor. And so I feel like in that sense, she's still upholding her values, even though she feels like a total traitor, you know, for turning her back on this guy and destroying all of his property and forcing him to leave. And he even said it like, oh, you're going to force me to leave? You sound like a Cardassian. You know what I mean? Like, he's throwing that on her, like, you've lost your way, or you don't value independence and individuality and freedom and all these things that she absolutely values. But for her, she's just like, it's about the greater good. And I'm sorry I have to do this to you, but I will do this to you. I'm not going to let somebody else do this to you. Because, of course, Starfleet was happy to come down and do this and, you know, lend a hand and uproot the people who are staying there on the moon. But Kira's like, no, like, these are my people. I was this person. Although she never got a chance to settle down in some cute little farm because she went from fighting kind of straight to being an administrator. So she didn't really have this like settle down somewhere moment unless you consider her settled on the space station. However, even that fact that she took Bajoran troops to the moon to collect this guy and his two friends, and she was like, it's Bajor for Bajor. Like, I'm not letting Federation people come in here. I'm definitely not letting Cardassians anywhere near here. And we don't need military people. We just need to do what's best for our people. So I really liked it. I liked Duet a lot better. I liked In the Hands of the Prophets a lot better. And like I said, Q-less is just such a iconic episode. So that's why this couldn't make the top 3. But I did want to mention it. And I'll just reiterate, I really love the Kira backstory, the backstory of the Bajor, all the survivors and how they make sense of the world now. And I like seeing that. So that is the end of my soapbox. I'm going to read the chat one more time and then we'll be done. And you can hang out with me next week, same place, same time, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, where I will be talking about my favorite and least favorite episodes of season 2 of Deep Space Nine. It's Hardcastle and McCormick in space. Without the car. OMG, this one. I don't even know if I even like it. I mean, I've watched it 7 times, but the ending, I don't know. Kira, OMG, I don't know. It's so uncomfy. That was very well put. Yeah, you see her make a hard choice. And You see her make two choices. There were, they were building a kiln. Yeah, I was like, I'm not sure if it's a kiln or if it's an apiary. Whatever it is, it looked cool. It looked cool and spacey and futury. This is one of Trek's more interesting moral quandaries. But with the Federation providing assistance, I find it hard to believe they have to turn a moon into an uninhabitable wasteland to provide energy. That is kind of the that's kind of the one what do you call that when they just like do something for the plot, but they like absolutely don't have to do that? Whatever. Like that's one of the things. It's always like, oh, the Federation. It's always like we have to do this thing that's going to mess up this small group of Bajorans, in this case 3. We have to do this thing that's going to mess up this small group of Bajorans and like totally uproot their lives and be super inconvenient, but whatever, Bajor needs it, so you just have to do it. You know, so this is one of those things where it's like, we have to convert this moon. There's no other moon we could possibly fix. And they would make the argument, it's only 3 people. So like, you know, we're going to do this. Could the Federation help? Probably, but conveniently the Federation can never help with stuff like this. And I don't know if, like, in universe, I don't know if this is part of Bajor being like, we're independent and we don't, yeah, a MacGuffin. Yeah, maybe. But I don't know if this is part of Bajor being like, we're independent, or part of, yeah, plot device. That's what I was looking for. Or is it part of the Federation being like, we want to help, but not too much? You know, like in universe, I'm not sure why the Federation can't be more helpful to rebuilding Bajor, especially since they didn't really help with anything going on with occupation. Like Bajor was under so much stress and pressure and, you know, all these atrocities. And the Federation was just like, prime directive, can't do anything about that. And now that the occupation's over, that Bajor has won their own freedom, now the Federation's like, okay, now we can help. So, okay, I get that. That's prime directive. They're following their rules. But then when they come in, like, how much help are they giving? Because Deep Space Nine in the first episode is just trashed, right? Like the Cardassians trashed it. They tore up everything. It just looks, I mean, they pretty much set the place on fire. They ripped out panels and cords and wires, and they just left this place trashed. And yes, O'Brien was able to fix it and like reconfigure some things. But to your point, Dustin, like, couldn't the Federation have brought the nicest things there? Like, why not? Why? Like, I feel like that wouldn't be that hard, especially with unlimited, with replicators being able to make literally anything, you know, depending on the size of the replicator and its function. They could have just fixed everything. Why is O'Brien in here holding the whole space station together with chewing gum and shoestrings? Like, I feel like they could do more. So anyways, that's my question. That's like a kind of question in the back of my mind. In universe is like, is Bajor struggling like this so much because they just refuse to accept help from the Federation? Or are they struggling so much like this because the Federation refuses to help them? Or is it a combination of both? I don't really know. I don't really know. Yeah. Kind of like the Ma, but so much more personal. What's the Ma? Or MA? What's that? The instant of command, dumb enter button. I don't know what that's. Instance of command. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. The instance of command. That took me a minute. In the TNG episode, the instance of command, that's the one with the Shellyak, right? Where like there's a whole colony of humans living on this planet that's like totally uninhabitable and toxic, but somehow they made it last. And then the Shellyak are like, that's our planet, and we're coming back to that planet. So get your people, get your humans off the planet, or we will just exterminate them when we get there. And so they send Data to go deliver this message, and nobody's listening to Data. And Data's like, you guys have to leave. You got to get out of here. The Shellyak are coming. And they're like, this is our land, and we're going to protect our land, and no one can make us leave. And they left. In the end, they left because the Shellyak were going to easily destroy them. Yeah, incompatible with Cardassian technology, but why couldn't they retrofit it with all Federation technology? Why couldn't they do that? I don't know. The plot demands this challenge. Like plots. Exactly. Well, thank you so much to everybody watching live. Thank you to everybody who's watching on the replay and made it all the way to this point. Join me next week, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, when we will talk about my favorite and least favorite episodes from Deep Space Nine Season 2. By the way, no spoilers because I'm still making my way through the show. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not already. And I will see you next week. Bye.